Doctor, could you tell me when all this android stuff started?
Well, young lady, it's interesting you should ask. As a matter of fact, I've been sort of eager to talk about it. It's one of my pet projects. I've been doing these things since mid-50s, and they started out with a double I needed for a sort of midnight spook show, a seance, where there was to be a sacrificial victim, a girl that was going to meet with sort of foul play, and we needed a replica of her. And I had a store window mannequin that looked very much like the girl in the tableau that I was using, but it needed modification, so I added a little plaster here and there, and then it was closer than I really expected it to be to the real appearance. So after this thing was pulled off with some success, I decided about a year later to go into the production of people for my own amazement, and to see what I could come up with people that really looked like the kind that I would have created, or if I could pick out a person in a bar or on the street and custom make them, just what I could do with it. So I experimented with fiberglass and polyurethane foams and PVC, vinyls, various things, and eventually just turned out in varying degrees of realism, different people. I never considered it an art form at any time. As a matter of fact, I was loath to exhibit them after some other artists had started making super realistic sculpture figures. And I felt this was a highly personal thing. It was an evocation of my own. And the idea got to me that maybe these people had something more to offer in the way of companionship, certainly for me, than the real people that I had been associating with. So I began to infuse them with more and more importance. I invested them with a certain kind of life that I appreciated as companionship much more than most real people. And I became somewhat obsessed with making better people, more debauched people in some cases, more understanding or sympathetic people, and I found by the addition of certain devices I could bring a sort of semblance of life to them. It's nothing really spectacular. I don't claim to have replicated human beings perfectly, but at least for my purposes they serve quite well. The real people that one would assume would be attractive, to me, are far more plastic than the ones I create. I don't look for perfection in the established sense or criteria of perfection, but rather, to me, perfection is completion or satisfaction. And so people who are flawed and not exactly beautiful people are far more interesting to me than people who are sterile. That's why my people are not beautiful people. They're rather grotesque people, often disheveled people, and people who have seen probably more of life in their own artificial form, at least visually speaking. They look like they've seen more of life than most people really do. I guess I've always been fascinated by the sordid, by the sleazy, by the seamy side of life. It's led me into professions, into occupations, into things like the Church of Satan that would almost glorify or dignify that kind of person. I'm not trying to whitewash the lowest element of society, but I am saying that in what is often considered the most perfect or the most acceptable visual form of human being is a rather shallow, completely uninteresting individual. In the near future, you might be very disposable because an android or an artificial human companion might be far more entertaining, far more fun to be with than you are. So here's to artifice and a 21st century filled with artificial human companions, hopefully far more well-endowed physically, emotionally, and mentally than those we see about us now.
How you doing? This is Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. Tonight's episode is entitled The Flesh Engine. And let me just start off by saying that this is not just a random topic for me. This one actually hits home. And this episode is a warning, not just for my normal listeners and readers after I actually published this episode and this article. This is a warning for parents and females. This comes from years of darkness that I've actually experienced. And I do mean very real darkness. As many of you know, I used to be a practicing theistic Satanist. Now, this wasn't just some random, like wearing goth outfits and playing with Ouija boards and dabbling around a little bit. No, I mean literally I worship Satan as an actual deity, as my chosen God back then. Literally. In every sense of the word. And that boils down to I worship the flesh. Literally. And I lived for indulgence. Whatever power I could try to gain control of. And yes, if it was something I disagreed with, I was going to rebel against it. There was no question about that. That was just the way it is. In fact, one could actually say back then when I was practicing in the occult, that would say that was part of my faith. Because it literally was. If you disagree with something, you rebelled against it. You don't have to be forced to do anything. I mean, I'm not going to go into their dogma. Anyways, and yes, it actually gets deeper. As many people know, I was friends with Stanton LaVey, which is Anton LaVey's grandson, who was the founder of the Church of Satan. So yes, I did know Stanton and Sharon personally. I'm going to leave off right there. I'm not going to talk about personal stories that I had with them. I thought it was relevant in the sense of, you guys are going to see later on, of why Anton LaVey was relevant or anything to do with this episode. So this episode isn't just a theory. I've walked amongst darkness. So it's not from judgment. I literally have hard-earned experience in these different parts of this section. So I am just a Christian. I'm a man who has wrestled with demons. And I do mean literally and figuratively wrestle with demons. As many of you know, I'm a former sex addict. So lust wasn't just a problem for me. I actually made it part of my daily lifestyle back then. Sex, drugs, and anything pure taboo, I was all about it. It did not matter how taboo, how twisted, how out there it was. In fact, probably I would wager that more out there it was, the more prone I was more into it, as long as it was what I would deem safe. Now, I'm talking about things that most people wouldn't even speak about. These things often took place in dim-lit back rooms of clubs with candles or strobe lights or whatever have you. House parties, hotel rooms, etc. There's always loud music. There's always strobe lights. There was always lots of drugs and alcohol. Now, a lot of secret things happen that people wouldn't openly speak about. And that is crucial to understand within this episode as we go along. These are things that, like, back when I was involved in stuff, it wasn't common for you to hear about what people were doing at parties, at hotel rooms. I mean, yeah, if you were part of a certain lifestyle, you might have been more privy to, information. But out in the openly, people didn't just speak about this. And a lot of times, people that were involved with it, they were like lawyers and doctors and like teachers and people of the community. And they didn't just want their business out there like that. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't something that was accepted to talk about. It didn't matter what nature it was or what realm of that it was. It just wasn't simply done. It wasn't talked about. It often trips me. It often actually trips me out when I see the news and I hear about all the stuff that's going on, that they're pushing everything from the Furbies to the LGBT and all that mess. And yes, that's crucial to understand with this episode as well. So to me, let me get back on topic here. So to me, this wasn't just this wasn't just off and on. This was every day for me. Okay, I would literally wake up, send my wife off to work, do my coke with my coffee, and, go to college, my college classes to start my evening. That was literally my daily routine. It wasn't just off and on. That was every single day. Like I had a plate and it was just full of different lines. I'm not going to go into all that right now, but hold on. Just as well, the deeper that we go into the pit, like the deeper I went into the pit, the more I try to justify it, that it was all just for freedom. And however, it was not freedom when it comes down to it. It was actually bondage disguised as actual pure pleasure, okay? So when I was doing it, though, when I was involved in that club scene, when I was involved in the underground scene that I'm talking about, it was like, yeah, you're expressing yourself and you have absolute pure freedom, you know, like pure indulgence. You're just expressing what human nature is. It's human nature. Go for it. Why would it be wrong if it feels so right and it's human nature, right? See, that's where we're wrong. It's not freedom. It's actually bondage disguised as pleasure. Now let's get back on hand. So I also studied culture anthropology and sociology during my school years. So I spent years trying to understand human behavior as a whole. Now, why do we do what we do and what we crave and what drives people towards darkness in the name of progress? See, today, as a true crime podcaster and blogger, I spend my time exposing actual real evil. Human trafficking, organ trafficking, exploitation, the hidden industries that actually prey on the weak and feed off of addiction and profit off of spiritual blindness. Hold that thought. So when I say artificial intelligence, especially robotic companions, are dangerous, I don't mean hypothetically. I mean spiritually, physically, psychologically, and even culturally, one could argue. I mean, we could even go in society if we wanted to take it there during a live episode and discuss how culturally this is significant and damaging to society. So trust me, folks, the flesh engine, this stuff that you're hearing about and what you're about to hear about, it's just now revving up. Okay? It's just now getting their gears going. Okay? So let me break this down without actually trying to sugarcoat it, okay? So we're not just building technology anymore, are we? We are building custom companions. We are building digital slaves. AI and robotics are being engineered to do more help around the house. This is true. We are creating machines within personalities, feelings, voices, and even sexuality availability. And you can order your taste. You can pick your preferred genders, your body types, your personality traits, your voice tone, and emotional responses that they can do. And in some cases, if you have the money, you could even pay for the type of robots that could change their face to another face if you would like. So, essentially, you could build your dream partner. Sounds amazing, right? You could build your own lover, your own cheerleader, if you will. Your own personal female slave to worship your every need. Someone or something that exists only to serve your needs. No resistance, no conflict, no growth whatsoever. Just pure, raw obedience to your pure flesh engine. Whatever your urges would be. Now tell me, what is different than what Anton LaVey preached in the clip that I provided in this episode? Because if you know Satanism, you know what it's all about. Gratifying your flesh to become your own God, essentially. Bowing down to no one except to yourself. Anton LaVey, he did not just believe in Satan as a literal being. In fact, he often would tell you he did not believe in Satan as a literal being. He believed he was his own God. He saw himself as the ultimate rebel, the one who said no to God, the one who said yes to self-worship and indulgence. See, folks, at the core of Satanism is do whatever you want to. Fulfill your every single desire. Deny no craving that you have. The flesh is very sacred, people, to a Satanist. And I do mean very, very sacred. The self essentially is king. There is no law above your own will in Satanism. They won't allow it. Now, let's look at what AI sex robotics are actually offering, shall we? Complete customization of your own ideal companion. Design a companion that will never betray you, never hold you accountable, and you can literally program it to say the things that you wish people to say to you, or whatever you wish. So if you're a guy, whatever you would wish a girl to say to you, and if you're a girl, whatever you wish a guy or a girl, whatever. I mean, these days, who knows? Whatever you would desire to say to you. You could train it to moan when you touch it. You can update its firmware to match your latest kinks if you desire. That means, like, as time goes by, let's say you get bored with whatever flavor you're into, right? Well, you can go, hey, I was thinking, I saw this thing, and I always thought I wanted to give it a whirl. And you literally program it to do it. See, folks, that's not just a toy. That is satanic gospel in pure machine form. So that is actually contrast that with the call of God. In both Christianity and Judaism, and really Islam, is a repeated theme. The flesh is not your master. In Judaism, the concept of Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is deeply understood. It is the primal drive that's actually inside us. Not inherently sinful, but dangerous when unchecked. It must be tamed, confronted, and mastered. You can't gratify it just to overcome it. I mean, you can't gratify it. You overcome it. Christianity actually built on this. So let me clarify with that. Jesus did not say, express your flesh. He said, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Luke, let me make sure. I believe it is Luke 9:23. You don't flirt with sin. You don't entertain lust to get it out of your system. You die to it. However, with AI and robotics offer a loophole, a workaround, a silent whisper that says it's not just a person, so is it a really sin? And that's literally my thought about this as I was going into my research over the past year off and on. That's literally what people that actually are falling in love with the robotic companions and they're actually saying whenever you approach them and you ask them this, they say, but is it really a sin because it's not a person? You know what I mean? It's a toy. It's a tool. Even though they fall in love with it supposedly and all this other stuff, they say that it's a tool, and so how could it be a sin? Well, if you ask me, that sounds like the serpent in the garden. Don't you remember what the serpent said? Did God really say that when he was talking to Eve? I've struggled with sex addiction off and on since my teenage years in secret, and I know what it means to actually spiral out of control and up and down. I know what it is to cross different boundary lines and then move that line a little bit farther ahead, and then again and again, until there basically is no more lines left to go except illegal boundary lines. Now, that is what robotic companions do to your brain. They basically eliminate resistance. Resistance is the very thing, people, that builds more muscle. It's how you grow. It is how you stay grounded. However, when you remove your boundaries and you give into your flesh with unlimited permission to feed, trust me when I say this, your soul will decay. See, it's not just spiritually, everybody. It's neurological. See, science, they basically constantly bark this, don't they? Addiction does not need drugs. All it needs is a reward loop. AI bots especially ones tied to yourself, mimic human attachment responses, okay? What I'm meaning is the ones that are designed as sexual companions or wives or whatever have you, they designed them to mimic human attachment responses. Sorry about that. So if you have ever studied dopamine patterns, you know what it becomes dangerous very, very fast. I mean, it literally can. It creates a perfect storm for an excessive dependence, emotional isolation, and detachment from the very real thing, meaning the very real human being. People will basically become slaves to the robots because they're going to be like, why even go outside? I can make my money inside my house. I have my spouse charging up over here in the corner. I got my backup roaming around, sweeping on my floor over here. I can order everything I want to my front door. Why do I need to go anywhere? You know, that's kind of sounding like WALL-E, isn't it? Just a little bit. Remember how everybody was in WALL-E? They had those goggles and they're floating around at the beginning of it, and you had that big TV basically telling them everything they need, and everything was floating around in front of them. By the way, that sounds like Neuralink. Anyways, let's move on. See, folks, you won't just ruin your soul. You will wreck your whole nervous system. The very worst part, the world is already starting to normalize it. It's wrapping it up in a mental health limbo, if you will. Lingo, sorry about that. It helps with the loneliness, they'll say. It's pure therapeutic, they'll say. It's a safer and better way than physically cheating, is it not, folks? That's what they'll say. You won't get sexual diseases. That's what they'll say. It is safer than having a real relationship mentally, they'll say, because you won't get emotionally damaged, they'll say. So let me say this clearly. Emotionally numbing is not healing, everybody. Avoiding real human connection because it's too hard to withstand the growth, that is actual regression. Okay, that's not therapeutic. You're not healing anything. Okay, you're actually what they call regressing backwards, if you will. See, true mental health comes through facing your wounds, not programming away your needs into some fantasy that really actually never really challenges you in the first place to ever face your wounds. Instead, they help you ignore them. You know what I'm saying? That's not, I mean, okay, look, as a man, let me tell you this. We're supposed to stand on our own 2 feet. If we got somebody constantly just babying you and saying that, not challenging you in any kind of way, how is that helping you grow? You get what I'm trying to say? That's not helping you grow. So the robot or bot does not actually love you, okay? It is actually designed to fake love. That's what people need to understand. So you would slowly stop actually seeking the real thing in physical intimacy, okay? Now, in the clip, you saw Anton LaVey, right? What did he say? He said, in the future, people will not have a need to come together as a traditional sense of marriage, the way that it is right now. They'll only come together to reproduce. That will be the only need that they'll need. Of course, this was back in the 70s whenever he was saying this. So he said, that's the only way that they'll need to come together is to reproduce, and they really don't even need that at this point to where we're at. So he said they won't even need a spouse. They'll just program however they want. You heard it for yourself, and that was the founder of the Church of Satan. That's why I'm bringing it up. So, like I just said a minute ago, they're designing these robots just like what he said. Did he not just say what they just said? You know what I mean? They're designing them to where you stop seeking the real thing. See that, to my friends, that right there, folks, that's spiritual anesthesia. That's to knock you out. You know what I mean? That's soul seduction. You're allowing yourself to get pimped. That's soul seduction. You get what I'm trying to say? Essentially. I mean, I could actually really go into that too, because let me tell you, the amount of money some of these people are spending, well, I'm going to show you in the bonus features, but man, the amount of money they spend on these things, it's unreal. But anyways, so as a true crime blogger and as a podcaster, I deal with the dark underbelly of society. We're talking human trafficking rings, organ black markets, criminal syndicates, because I focus on organized crime more than other types of crime. So, one thing that I've actually learned? There's always market control for exploitation, for power without consequence. And robotic companions, they're just a frontier in a new market. A cleaner form of exploitation, but built on the same craving for domination without the humanity. So eventually, those with money and sickness in their souls will stop at nothing to actually get what they want. AI will not just be programming to mimic pain and suffering, submission. This will be and already is actually feeding a whole new kind of evil, everybody, and it really is. And we're going to break all this down in just a little bit, believe me. So, don't think it's just, far off from now. Because, often that's what I'll hear. I'll talk to people, and that's what I'll hear. Well, Mike, we're talking like far off. We're, I know things are moving fast, but we're not quite that far. No, in actuality, we're actually already there. It's just many people don't realize how far there we actually are. And that's because of the price market. But anyways. So, even if you're not a Christian, okay? Listen to this. Every major faith tradition actually speaks of going against uncontrolled human desire. See, Islam teaches that the concept of ego or lowering self, which must be purified. Buddhism speaks of detachment from craving. Hinduism warns against kama, which is their word for lust, overpowering your dharma or your self-righteousness. Take that, left. So anyways, so my friends, this is not just a Christian warning that you're expecting. No, like I said, this is a global humanity warning. This is a warning to all human beings. This is a warning to all parents, to all families, to all churches, to all forms of faith. This is a warning, and heed my warning fast, because as you're about to hear, things are getting bad, and they're getting bad quicker than what we can imagine. Now, every culture that normalized unrestricted pleasure, they actually fell, right? Let's look at who those were. Rome, Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah. And friends, in this time period that we're in now in the process of beginning to fall. A lot of people aren't willing to accept that just yet, and I'm talking about the educational field. Now, y'all know who you are, but I'm just saying, they're not willing to admit it yet. But yes, society is beginning to collapse. Now they're building machines, basically, to essentially become our slaves. Now, however, what's going to happen when human beings become the machine slaves? Think about that for a minute. I want you to think about something. Think about how integrated technology already is to your daily life. Before you leave your house, do you not set your alarm system? Check your cameras, all that. Do you not grab your phone, make sure everything's linked up? All right? Do you not turn on your car, which has electronic chips in its own form of computers in it, as you're going? Some cases, if they're smart cars driving you wherever. What happens when human beings become slaves to technology? See, hear me out on this. This isn't just anti-tech. No, folks, I'm screaming about anti-progress. See, I actually love what tech can actually do for us. Seriously, I really do. Human dignity and truth is amazing. However, what we are doing now, we're not really advancing, everybody. In fact, we're actually steadily regressing. I don't know if I mentioned in this article because, like I said, I've been ongoing research with this. But recently, a new study has came out. I'm not sure which university it was. I've been looking at a lot of different ones. But literally speak about this, about how right now they've been doing new studies that show since the rise of different artificial intelligence programming apps and bots and different things like that, people are actually getting dumber faster because they're not utilizing their brain. They're allowing these machines to basically answer the question for them and tricking themselves into believing that they have something to do with it because they're trying to make it more human-like sounding with responses. See, we're not really solving loneliness either. And I'm talking about my mental health professionals out there, okay? People that are in the field of the areas that I studied. No, we're not solving loneliness. Now, you might be tricking yourself into believing that you're curing loneliness, okay? And depression and all these other things by creating companion bots or robots. But you're not. You're actually industrializing the whole concept of it. And you're going to create a market for it. We're about to look into that. See, the flesh engine, it's seduction at its finest. It's silent and it's completely self-serving. It tells you what you want it to hear. Or, sorry, let me rephrase that, tongue twister there. It tells you what you want to hear. It touches you like you've always imagined that you would want to be touched. It never will argue with you. But it also never actually grows. It actually never can purely love you. I'm talking like a human being can. Or even an animal, for that matter. If you have a pet. It will never, ever bring you closer to curing loneliness. See, Jesus did not die so that you could actually play house with a robot or a bot, people. And I'm talking to all of you in the Christian faith. My faith. So, he died to rescue you from your flesh, from your loneliness, from the lie that you're actually your own God. You might not realize it yet, but if you've been toying around with this stuff, a lot of it will try to trick you into believing that you're your own God. Because you got all of the world's knowledge at the access of your fingertips. So, I'm going to say this. Choose wisely. Because one day, the thing that you program to love you actually might be the very thing that replaces your soul. Hold on. So stay alert, stay uncomfortable, stay holy. Okay, hold on. Oh yeah, I forgot I added on to this, everybody. So Christians, Jews, Muslims, anyone who claims to actually worship God of Abraham, you need to hear this next part. This is for us. See, a wise man studies his enemy. Spend time to study his enemy. You learn their tactics, right? I'm talking to the educated ones now. Think about the Bible. Think about Sun Tzu, the Art of War. We study their tactics and you study your enemy. You learn to understand their weaponry and their weapons. So let me tell you this straight up. No matter how slick the packaging is, this tech, when misused, is straight up from the devil. Now, like I said before, and do not get me wrong, I'm not anti-tech. I don't want you to think that. AI actually has amazing applications, and I actually call it a golden shovel, to be honestly, which is a quote from Glenn Beck. You can actually build civilizations with it, or you can dig your own grave with it. What that means is, like Glenn Beck said, we got a golden shovel at our tip of our hands that you're capable of finding out any question. It'll answer anything that you actually want it to answer, okay? But yet, we're not using it correctly, are we? And I'll let you be the judge of what I mean by that. So, they say robotic companions, sex box, artificial intelligent girlfriends, synthetic soulmates are the next big thing, and they truly are. The ads are phenomenal. I'm going to attach them in the bonus features so you can see what we're talking about here. That it has amazing implications that can help individuals who have a hard time with intimacy or social issues, or disabled individuals that have not managed to find a partner. So, brothers and sisters, let's just call this what it is. The flesh engine. A man-made counterfeit of human intimacy. It is both spiritually poisonous and emotionally catastrophic. Okay? And I'm not even getting into the criminal part of it yet. That's even crazier. Hold on. Man, that lemonade's actually pretty good. It's pretty sour. Alright, so let me be real. How many of you know that people without emotional or spiritual boundaries are dangerous as hell? Okay? Now, how many of you know someone who is completely unhinged? Come on now, you know the type of what I'm talking about. They have no self-control, no morality. Just emotions and pure chaos comes out of them. They haven't learned to control it yet. You know what I'm saying? They're just acting on impulse constantly. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, that's just a wild one, man. They're cray-cray. You know what I mean? That type of, sayings with it. It's just how we deal with it. That's just how they are, Anyways. So some of y'all might say, well, maybe this person has finally found, actual love for them. They've been lonely for so long, like a companion, a robot to keep them from acting out. Hold up, folks. Let's not judge so fast here, okay? To say something is good without actually a full understanding of it, because I'm pretty sure we're close to finding out that we're not. So you can literally program these bots to be whoever you want them to be, like I said earlier. So let that sink in for a minute. You do not have to earn love with these things, with robots and bots. You develop a character or become trustworthy with them. All you need is to know how to tweak some code, upload a few pictures, and boom. Instant sex doll. With fake emotions that are actually built and learned and perfected over time of usage, meaning a computer and it will eventually recognize what it most likely would call learned emotional responses, patterns that are based on your interactions with it, meaning the things that you're telling it to be like. I want you to do this. Can you do that? Things like that. And that's what it's going to try to become over a period of time if you allow it to. There are ways around that, but anyways. Now let's get real uncomfortable for a minute, can we? Ladies, how many men do you know who are absolutely obsessed with you? And I mean in an unhealthy way, a cringe way. Now imagine those same men taking a picture of you, your child, and making a sex robot, a digital girlfriend of it, if you will. And this is not just sci-fi anymore, folks, that we're talking about, okay, anymore, or a horror movie. No, this is 2025, and this is happening in real time right now, okay? Like, ladies, these things are actually going on. There's court cases around the world. There's one in Australia right now you can find about a woman whose Facebook was hacked. And she found out that her face was being sold as a sex robot companion without her permission. They basically got her Facebook profile picture, and that's how it was made. That's why I said what I said. It's happening right now. And I think that most of y'all need to be aware of this. So, gentlemen, think about that toxic, manipulative woman that you had to cut out of your life at one point. That one who lives on drama and pure revenge. That you think that she won't use an AI replica to bait you, trap you, or even frame you? Hold on. You think she won't recreate you, as her property? Think again. There's a case for that one too, involving kind of like along the lines of identity theft. My allergies are just acting up out here in Oklahoma, man, right now. All right, so to everybody that's involved on the streets, I'm talking to the hood dudes, right? The ones I'm talking about, you in a gang, or you're making money on the streets. Let's just say that. You think that your rivals ain't gonna try to clone you with AI companions or robotic bots? You don't think that they're going to build one to try to extort you with fake ones? You don't think the police will not use synthetic AI agents in sting operations online or even in person, since they're actually in human form now with robots? You don't think that organized crime won't build replicas, robotic companions for extortion reasons, human trafficking reasons, and identity theft reasons? Y'all need to wake up. Because all it takes nowadays, from what I understand, is photo. That's it. One single photo and some deep fake software, and boom, you got a robot that's born. Essentially. Well, you got the starter one. Churches, synagogues, and mosques. Temples, if you're a part of another faith of spirituality. Spiritual leaders and teachers, where are you? is my question on this issue. You know, you should be standing up, praying hard, and speaking louder than hellfire and brimstone. You should be warning your communities left and right about the dangers of this stuff, of how bad it can be, and how toxic it can be for the human mind, and how bad it can be for people's safety. We really should be. I'm including myself in that. That's why I did this podcast episode, in fact, because I felt like that was my way of doing just that. We need to be trying to do our part to educate general society. I'm going to get into that in a minute, about these issues. So the souls of this generation, folks, they're actually under siege. I'm talking to my spiritual leaders now. Sadly, most pulpits are either asleep or they're bought and paid for. See, you were not called to be spiritually sedated. You were called to be spiritual warriors. I'm talking to the spiritual men now. We were called to be spiritual warriors of Christ, not sitting in a pews, falling asleep, going like this. Okay? We're called to be active for the body of Christ, because we could be doing stuff for Jesus at work, on the street, or any event. Sports events, it doesn't matter. You get what I'm trying to say? That's why I put that in there. You were called for that. You know what I'm saying? So everybody, this is the enemy. It's not just some vague demon, okay, that's in the cloud somewhere, in the midst, that you're calling forth, you know? No, this is working right now through scientists, lawyers, technocrats, psychologists, and global elites. They are pushing AI and robotic companions even for pedophiles, I found out, and rapists. Yeah. Hear that again. You heard that right. There is a group of people that's part of the sick group that fights for those sick people's rights, that's recommending them for therapeutic reasons for pedophiles to lower their chances of recommitting a crime. Even though any basic person with the knowledge of mental science will tell you that's absolutely wrong. In fact, you're feeding into it, and eventually they're going to crave the real thing. Let's move on real quick. We can go back to that one if we need to in a minute. So this is not just a tech issue, like I was saying. This is not just about gadgets and apps and innovation that's new. It's not. This is a spiritual issue. This is a public health issue. This is a national mental health crisis issue. This is about the safety of our children. This is about the erosion of the human soul. This is a flesh engine that's designed to not just break society. It's actually designed to replace society as we know it. It rewrites the human brain. It trains people to stop forming real relationships in the real world, to stop honoring real consent. Hear that again. Real consent. To stop loving real people. So this is not just about sex anymore. It's about surrendering to a fantasy so deep that it actually eats your spirit and soul alive. If we do not speak up now, if we do not resist and fight now, then every soul asleep at the wheel is going to wake up in hell in their own making. They don't even have to go to hell. Eventually, they're going to find themselves in hell of their own making, because they're going to fall deeper, deeper, and deeper, and deeper into this stuff. I mean, real quick, before I get into the last part of my notes here, real quick, how many of you know people that are addicted to gaming? In any kind of way, from video games to casinos and so on. How many people know somebody addicted to that? These are the type of people that are going to first become addicted to these type of people. I guarantee you, they're going to become addicted to these robotic companions real fast. Okay? Because this is causing instant gratification, in some cases the same exact way that video games do. We're not going to get into that. That's a whole nother psychological study that has to do with dopamine and, you know, all that kind of stuff releasing into the brain. But it's along those lines. Okay? Hold on. So, a digital hell, like I was saying, a synthetic lie, a flesh engine that's actually designed by demons and funded by perverted billionaires Stay sharp, everybody, and stay awake. And please do not give your soul over to these machines, okay? I'm really putting emphasis on this, so I want to go into some things real quick, like I do every time. So, these bots, as I was saying, are highly toxic and highly dangerous to your mind, okay? That's a fact. I don't care what they say. I've watched thousands of hours of different studies. I've read so many case studies of arguing either for or against robotic companions and bot companions, either arguing for it from a mental health aspect, arguing for it against it from a mental health aspect. I've heard testimonies from people from everything from how bad it is to how good it is. There's one case that I'm including. I got to re-find it, though. I don't know if I saved it. I got to find it again. But there's a case of a girl that fell in love with her robot. It was really weird because she used Replica. Replica is like really 3D looking, It's not very realistic in the sense of the software. I don't know I'm not a computer person per se, but the way it's designed is 3D. It's really cheesy looking to me. But anyway, she fell in love with them to the point to where she got married. And she literally said, I know I got friends and family that don't understand, that say I'm crazy and that I need to knock this off. And she said, but to me, this is the real thing. That this is more real than anything else I've ever had. Earlier when I said that there's a psychological aspect to it that's dangerous to people, that was the type of people that I'm talking about. It's become highly dangerous to them because not only are they getting something that they've always wanted, but they're able to program it to do whatever they want and be whoever they want on top of that. Okay? That's highly dangerous. That's highly dangerous, if you ask me. Again, the case with the girl in Australia. That happened, and we're talking about, I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about some social media personality type that has like thousands of subscribers. No, this person was paranoid because of like during COVID and stuff. So she had like her preacher and I think like 14 other friends on her friends list. But from what I understood, she got hacked. And then that's when she found out her picture was being sold and used to make sex companions and bots and all that other stuff. There's another girl that found out that her face was stolen, it being used and as ads. I can't recall if it was like a video ad like on Facebook or if it was like a billboard ad, but she says she's seen her face without her permission being used in different commercials. Okay, so that's another case of it. There's a case that a mother said, and I really can relate to this mother on a really real level because my oldest son, he's into games. He's into Minecraft and he's into all those type of games, I don't know much about it, but he's into all that kind of stuff. And she said that her son was a normal everyday boy who liked, all these different things, showed him playing sports and a typical whole nine, and he was into future and he was into like, robots and stuff. And she said that he got heavily involved in learning about artificial intelligence and robots and all that. And then from what I understood, he committed suicide. There's many cases already of people committing suicide because it's being recommended by these robots. And it shouldn't be that surprising, as sad as it is. If you've been studying the news or paying attention, then you already know, like up in Canada, they have been pushing people to commit suicide that are disabled and basically the same type of people that would really fall in love with these robots in a major way and actually be willing to pay for like whatever they need. They are recommending them to die there already. So I don't think it's that far out there that one of the companion bots companies designed it to where it's actually doing the same thing. Most likely, maybe it's from Canada. I don't know. All I know is it's happening at an alarming rate. People are committing suicide over this stuff. People are spending unreal amounts of money on these bot companions. That's why I said, you don't think that criminals are going to use this stuff on the black market and extortion and all this other stuff? Folks, one guy dropped like over $13,000 on a robotic bot, okay? Not even a physical robot that he like got in a box, mailed order to him that he has to charge in the corner or something. I don't know if you have to charge him. I don't know how it works, but what are those doll things, Not even one of them. No, just a program like replica or one of those type of things. And this guy spent over $1,300 in physical real world money on this bot. Let that sink in for a minute. You're not even talking about something that can physically please you in an intimate way. You're talking about, like I said earlier, a digital slave that's essentially doing whatever you want. That's not healthy. That's damaging. So, folks, again, this has been Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. This has been a short OTT episode. About the dangers of artificial intelligence and robotic companion, as far as I could tell. At OTT style, as you know, is just like this, where I'm relaxed and just basically discussing it. Say, like, if we're offline and just, like, I don't really drink that often anymore, but say getting medicated together or something, and having a discussion, a smoke session. That'd be more or less the style of OTT. And I really felt that it was urgent to get these stories out there because it's moving so fast. I mean, honestly, time is being sped up so fast. That's a whole nother podcast episode that has to do with the end and all that. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I did want to say just how fast it's going. This is why it's so dangerous, in my opinion. But anyways, again, it's late here where I'm at, so I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. This has been Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. You guys can expect another OTT coming very soon. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do. I have a couple to pick from. And again, that series special will be starting up here pretty soon. I'll give an advertisement for whenever I do the Jesus special. This episode, like I said, again, this has been a warning for everybody. That's the other thing. If you're still with me, I would lock down your Facebooks or your social media accounts to the best of your ability. I know that some of us are creators out here, if you're still with me. And I know that as a social media influencer or creator, we have to have our image and face and stuff out there so much. But even still yet, I say lock down your stuff as best as that you can actually do, especially for your personal social media accounts. We all have personal social media accounts, you know what I'm saying? But you need to start locking down stuff because this stuff is no joke. It's every other day because I've added tech to, if you're a reader of my news blog, then I'm sure you've already noticed that I've included a lot of artificial intelligence or robotic news as we go along. This is due to the fact that right now, artificial intelligence from military sense all the way down to mental health and just everyday life is basically becoming blended in one. So I've started paying attention to it on the global news front for that reason. That's actually what inspired me to do this episode. Now, I'm going to include in the bonus features numerous clips that's going to support my argument about this stuff being pretty dangerous. Now, I'm not outright suggesting that anybody tries to ban it. That's not what I'm saying. We need to put a lot of restriction around certain things with this stuff. There needs to be more regulation around it for sure. Definitely a rating system to where people cannot access it at all. That's another thing. I actually do support the new porn law that's out there. I know a lot of people in the UK that are against it. I know a lot of people are against this stuff. However, do you guys remember back whenever I did that human trafficking series? I mentioned a court case of a girl who was underage that was actually being physically beaten. And I do mean physically beaten. I'll never forget that. She was being physically beaten live on camera. And there was thousands of people watching this happen. It was two girls. Okay, so the bigger girl, she went to go grab something, right? After she grabbed her, like originally she grabbed her by her hair and just smacked, I'm talking closed fist, just socked her down to the ground. Then she went into like another room or something. But when she did that, the girl was on her knees and she was mouthing, "This is not a game. This is not a game." Okay. So when I was doing the human trafficking research, I came across this and they were bringing up how many people watch this. And it turned out she was a missing teenager. You get what I'm trying to say? And the way that this stuff works, because this isn't the first time I've approached the adult industry. I've approached it numerous times during my podcasting history and blogging history. We all know that. For obvious reasons, as I stated at the beginning of this episode. So it's not the first time that I've covered anything like this. But again, this is Mike from Mike's Own Thoughts. Everybody have a great day.